ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
मध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
अस्मद्गुरुपर्यन्तां
वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु
सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै
वीर्यकरवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति
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 शान्तिः।
शान्ति।
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya.
Om
Namah
Namah
Shivaya.
Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya Acharya.
So, we had seen the Ananda Mimamsa is complete, and then we saw the mantra which said, Saha Yaschayam Purushe, that Ananda which is there in the Purusha, in the human being, Yascha Sava Aditya. That same Ananda is there in Hiranyagarbha also. Aditya is Hiranyagarbha. We saw it was there also. So, and Sa Ekaha, that so Ekaha means both the Anandas, the one in the human being and the one Hiranyagarbha, they are one and the same. The Ananda is the same. And Saya Evam Vita. Saya Evam Vita means the person who has understood the Shastram in this manner. In which manner? That the Ananda that he has, that is the equivalent of the Ananda which Hiranyagarbha has, provided he has the necessary dispassion. Necessary vairagyam is there. There is no need to go to Hiranyagarbha Loka and look for that Ananda. It is there in him at the moment, currently also. So a very beautiful way of saying that there is no need for a search. Everything is in there, in you only. And now we see what is known as a Upasankramana Shruti. Upasankramanam means to leave or to travel. And in this Shruti, the rest of the Shruti is the Upasankramana Shruti. The fruit of this Atma Jnanam is being explained by the teacher. Now, the question is how to get this Atma Ananda. And that anybody who asks that question will need to do a little bit of Maranam. Because the Atma Ananda of Hiranyagarbha which you want to get, it need not be got. Why? Sa ekaha. He says, Sa yaschayam purushe, yascha savaditye sa ekaha. That same Ananda is in you yourself. You are Brahman. You are Ananda Chaitanyam Brahman. It need not be got. There is no need to do a search for that Ananda. There is no need to do any sadhana for that Ananda. And therefore, you should drop the seeking. It's a very interesting interpretation here. The sadhaka, as long as he is a sadhaka, what is the problem? As long as I consider that I am a sadhaka, what is the problem?
Dvaitam, there is something to be sought.
There is something that you are seeking which is separate from yourself. And since you are that thing which you seek, you will never get it. You will never acquire it. In this context, Shastram often gives the example of the musk deer. You know what a musk deer is? It's a deer which has a very nice fragrance emanating from its own body. And this musk deer roams about. He is fascinated by that nice scent, by the smell. And that musk deer roams around all the mountains looking for that smell, never realizing that it is from his own body. And similarly, the sadhaka who thinks that he is looking for Atmananda or Brahmananda, he will never acquire it until he realizes that it need not be acquired because I am that Brahman. I have the Atma Ananda. And therefore, the sadhaka status has to be dropped. You have to drop the seeking. And that dropping of the seeking can be undertaken in only one way, by understanding that I am the very object which I am seeking, and therefore there is no need for any further search. Vedanta at this point, Shastram is telling you that if you are seeking Atmananda, remember that very process of seeking, in that very process of looking for Atmananda, you are denying that very Atmananda. You cannot seek Atmananda because in the seeking, the denial is there. Denial of what? That I am Atmananda. And therefore, you will never acquire that Atmananda, that oneness with Brahman, you will never acquire because it need not be acquired. The only way you can acquire oneness, acquire in inverted commas, acquire oneness is by knowing that it need not be acquired. I am that very Atmananda. And so Shastram says, Sayaha evam vid. That person who knows Atmananda in this manner. And now starts the Upasankrana Shruti. So he says, Asmat lokat pretya. Asman lokat pretya. After leaving this world. Asman lokat, this world. Pretya means to leave. After leaving this world. Now, the problem here is what Shruti is saying, that having understood in this manner, then you need to leave the world, right? So which means the literal interpretation would be that after that further progress or moksha is possible only after you die. Now the problem is, and this, let me tell you, this is a very common misconception. So whenever you talk to a group of people about moksha, 7 out of 10 people will tell you that, oh, but that's only after death, no? So why are we bothered, right? Now, the thing is that if that is the case, and if I tell you that the moment you become a jnani, asmat lokat pradya, you will depart from this world. If that is what the teacher says, you can be assured that 95% of you will leave the class, right? Nobody wants to die just now, moksha or not. And therefore, Shankara sees this problem. So Shankara explains that pretya has another meaning. Pretya means turning your face away, turning away from this asmat lokat. You are turning away from the external world. In other words, you have dropped your dependence upon external objects, upon asmat lokat, for this world, for ananda. That dependence has gone. Therefore, you no longer depend upon events, objects, or any people for this ananda. This lack of dependence on the world, this independence, so to say, from the world for your own happiness, for ananda, this is what is called asmat lokat pratya, turning away from the world. Okay. Now, the next part of the mantra is Etam annamayam atmanam upasamkramati. Etam annamayam atmana upasamkramati. So upasamkramati means to leave or to cross or to transcend, leave behind. So what does he say? Etam annamayam atmanam. Right? What does the word atmanam mean over here? You are all senior students now. Etam annamayam atmanam. This annamaya atma. What does it mean? It's pretty obvious, right? Where is the reference to?
Annamaya kosha, the body.
Annamaya kosha, the body.
Atma, which is the existence principle in the body, the consciousness principle. In the body.
No, we are talking about Annamaya kosha only. Right? Why are we talking about Annamaya Kosha? Because earlier we talked about moving away from the Annamaya Kosha, where in this section only we talked about leaving the Annamaya Kosha behind. Where was that? In the context of what?
Panchakosha Viveka.
Panchakosha Viveka, right? And therefore, remember this particular aspect of Upasamkramati, moving away, is to be connected to our discussions on the Panchakosha meditation, which we did. The Panchakosha Prakriya, which we did. What did we say? That you first meditate upon the Annamaya Kosha as yourself, the Atma. Then you think of all the inconsistencies. Because if you are Atma, you are eternal. Annamaya Kosha has got a beginning and an end. If you are Atma, you have no decay. Annamaya Kosha has got decay. So you look up, when you say the Annamaya Kosha is Atma, that is a provisional statement that you are making. It's a starting point. And then having considered what Annamaya, what Atma, what Shruti says about Atma, the real nature of Atma, and then considering what you know of the Annamaya Kosha, then you see that there's a lot of discrepancy, and therefore you cannot possibly, you the Atma cannot possibly be the Annamaya Kosha, and therefore you say that, okay, I am not the Annamaya Kosha. So this Upasamkramati here is the short form of saying that I am giving up my identification with the Annamaya Kosha as myself. So I, the Atma, cannot possibly be the Annamaya Kosha. Giving up of that body identification is what is meant by Upasamkramati over here, crossing over, dropping the body identification. So that is the first step. You drop the body identification with the physical body, Annamaya Kosha. Why do you drop it? Because sa yaschayam purushe yascha savaditye sa ekaha. So evam, so yaha evam vid. You have understood in this manner that you are Anandamaya Atma itself. And therefore, you first start with Annamaya Kosha. You drop the bodily identification with the Annamaya Kosha. That is over. What is the next one? Etam pranamayam atmanam upasamkramati. After dropping the body identification with the physical body, with the gross body, sthula shariram, or the Annamaya Kosha, we'll say Kosha because we are talking about Koshas only. So after dropping the identification with the Annamaya Kosha, what will we do? We drop the identification with the Pranamaya Kosha. So etam pranamayam atmanam upasamkramati. I no longer say that I am the Pranamaya Kosha. So when I said that I am the Pranamaya Kosha, I dropped the identification with the Annamaya Kosha, thereby relegating Annamaya Kosha to Anatma. Now, when I say I am not the Pranamaya Kosha, what am I saying? I am the next inner Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha, and thereby I have dropped the identification with the Pranamaya Kosha, thereby converting Pranamaya Kosha to Anatma. Similarly, etam manomayam atmanam upasamkramati, etam vijnanamayam atmanam upasamkramati. Similarly, I give up identification with the Manomaya Kosha, with my thoughts, emotions. I give up identification with the Vijnanamaya Kosha, with the thinking processes, the rational decisions that I make. All this I give up. And then, etam anandamayam atmanam upasamkramati. I give up the body identification or the identification with the Kosha identification with the Anandamaya Kosha also. I am not even those thoughts. Priya, Moda, Pramoda thoughts, I am not. Because those are the thoughts which are present in Anandamaya Kosha, and therefore I drop that also. Now, here Upanishad doesn't say what happens next, but we have to supply after Anandamaya Kosha what happens. You are in Ananda itself. So therefore, you have to say, then Atmananda Nishtha Bhavati. He transcends the five koshas and then he abides, Nishtha Bhavati. He abides in Atmananda, in his own nature as Atmananda. Now, we will very often, we have used also, and we will continue to use the English words abiding in your real nature. What does abiding in your real nature mean? It is very important to understand. Abiding in your real nature simply means there is a constant, unbroken awareness of the fact of your real nature, which is what? Anandamaya Atma. Therefore, you constantly remember without any, you don't need any external event to remind you. You are constantly aware that you are Brahman, that you are Atmananda. Just like you are constantly aware today that you are a human being. Nobody needs to remind you. It's some thought running at the back of your mind that I am a human being. Similarly, this Jnani, once he understood that he is Atma, he will be consistently aware of the fact that he is Atma. He doesn't need anybody externally telling him that no, you are Atma. The Guru has told him once, he has done Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, assimilated the fact completely, and therefore he is constantly aware of the fact that he is Atma. He may be, in fact, it's a very interesting idea to think about. Today, when we have not yet assimilated fully, what is the subconscious thought in your mind? I am the body, mind, sense complex. I am a human being. And therefore, only on Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock, or whenever you are revising, or whenever you are meditating, doing Nididhyasanam, at that time you invoke the teaching and say, I am the Atma. All other times, that knowledge is relegated to the background. But when the assimilation is complete, that knowledge will be always present with you. And when you actually want to use the body for some transaction, you will have to disidentify from the Atma for the temporary period of doing a bodily transaction and say, okay, I am now identifying with the body, mind, sense complex, the body or the mind, so that the transaction can be complete. Very interesting mananam to do. How does it work? And the last part of the mantra is Tadapyesha Shloko Bhavati. In this context also, with regarding to this teaching also, there is another Rig mantra, and that Rig mantra is in Anuvaka number 9. Okay, so we need to chant Anuvaka number 9 is, are you there, Arvind? No.
He's not here, Raviji. He had another program.
All right, okay. So let us then go to Anuvaka number 9. I'll chant, you can repeat after me. Yato vacho nivartante
यतो वाचो निवर्तन्ते
अप्राप्य मनसा सह
अप्राप्य मनसा सह
अप्राप्य मनसा सह
अप्राप्य मनसा सह
आनंदं ब्रह्मणो विद्वान्
आनन्दं ब्रह्मणो विद्वान्
न बिभेति कुतश्चनेति
न बिभेति कुतश्चनेति
एतगं हवावन तपति
एतगं हवावन तपति
एतगं हवावन तपति
भवावन्तपति
किम अहम साधु नाकरवम
किम् अहं साधुरावाम्
किम अहम पापम अकरवम इति
किमहं पापमकरवामिति
स य एकम विद्वान एते आत्मनः शृणुते
स य एवं विद्वानेते आत्मानं शृणुते
उभयैवैश्य एते आत्मनः शृणुते
उभे एष ते आत्मनः शृणुते
य एवं वेद
य एवं वेद
इत्युपनिषत्
इत्युपनिषत्
Okay, this ends with the Shanti mantra, which we will do later. So let us first look at the meanings. Yato vacho nivartante. Very, very famous words, which is very often quoted by Shankaracharya. In almost all the bhashyams, you will find this quotation. Yato vacho nivartante. So this is the Rig mantra. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha anandam brahmano vidvan na bibeti kutashana iti. That iti indicates the end of the Rig mantra quotation. So from yato vacho nivartante until na bibeti kutaschana. That is the Rig mantra. So yato vacho nivartante. Yataha, from where? So from which Brahman, vachaha, words, nivartante. They come back unsuccessful. They return. We have to add that, return unsuccessfully. So when you say that the words return unsuccessfully, what does it mean? Shankara comments, a very nice commentary. He says that vachaha, words, are meant for what? Revealing an object, right? So in Sanskrit or in Hindi also, we have two different words. One is pada. Pada means words. Pada artha, or when you combine that padartha. Now remember in Hindi, what is the meaning of padartha? Object. Now, if you break the word padartha into its two components, pada plus artha, what does it mean?
Word meaning?
The meaning of the word. What is the objective of a word? To reveal an object. And therefore, padartha means that object which the word was designed to reveal. So, pada is the word, padartha is the object. So, every padam is designed to reveal a padartha. Okay. And here Shankara says, this word can reveal the object only when the object fulfills one or more of 5 conditions. What is that? It should be dravyam. It should be matter. Object should be made of matter. Or it should, or and. Can have or and. Okay, it's not all the conditions will be fulfilled. Some of them can be. So dravyam should be there. Should be matter. It should have some gunas. Some shape, some color. Like when you say, bring the red book, then there is a dravyam, which is the book, and the guna is red. So bring the red book. And therefore the red book pada reveals the book which is red in color. Then jati, a type. So it can be a fat book, a thin book, it can be a dictionary. Jati, a type is there. Or it can have a kriya, so something which is doing some action. Or it can be revealed through sambandha also. Like when you say, my son or my daughter. There is a sambandha, which is, there is a connection, the relationship, which is revealing that particular padartha. So Shankara says, this is actually an intrinsic limitation of every word. Because the boundary conditions under which the word can reveal its object is only if it fulfills one or it falls within one or more of these categories. Dravya, Guna, Jati, Kriya, Sambandha. Okay. And because of this limitation, the very fact that the limitation is there means that words cannot be used to reveal something, some entity, which doesn't fall into any of those categories. And Brahman doesn't fulfill any of the 5 conditions, and therefore words cannot reveal Brahman. And the problem is what? We have only words to talk with, to discuss or to reveal something. So we employ these limited words in an attempt to reveal the limitless Brahman. And a limited instrument cannot fulfill the purpose of revealing the unlimited Brahman, and therefore these words return back. Nivartante literally means return back. And therefore you have to say they return back unsuccessfully without having fulfilled their purpose, which is what? In revealing Brahman. Yato vacho nivartante. Words by themselves can never reveal Brahman, because words are finite. They can reveal some object which has these conditions fulfilled, the 5 conditions. And since Brahman doesn't fulfill any of those 5 conditions, words cannot reveal Brahman. Therefore, yato vacho nivartante. Words come back without fulfilling the purpose, which is to reveal Brahman. And then, aprapya manasa saha. Now, in the field in which words can function, thoughts can also function, right? Do you agree? Wherever words function, the corresponding thought is there, and therefore thoughts can also function. And an advantage is that the object which you are thinking about need not necessarily be available to your sense organs. It's very important to understand this argument. Words can reveal objects. Thoughts can reveal objects. Neither of these objects need necessarily be available to sense organs. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Give me an example.
Like prana is one example. Or if I'm thinking about anything, it is only mental, at a mental plane, right?
No, that is true. But give an example of something which is not available to sense organs, but you are using thoughts and words to describe it. Just example, just to give clarity in this discussion.
Like space.
Space is one. But space, at least you can feel, right? Yes, I can feel there is space over here. There is some idea that space is available. What is there which is not available at all?
Like devatas, we
Devata, Swarga, all these things. Okay, anything which is outside the range of your sensory organs is still available to words and thoughts. Remember that when you say mind, because why I was saying aprapya manasa saha, we are saying that even the mind is not able to grasp. So remember that the words are themselves based on your thoughts, and therefore the purpose of your vritti, thoughts, and the words are the same in this discussion, which is what? To reveal Brahman. And therefore, if the words have not been successful in revealing Brahman, it means you have not been able to formulate your thoughts in such a manner as to produce words which can reveal Brahman. Right? And therefore, when I say words have returned unsuccessfully, returned without revealing Brahman unsuccessfully, you have to also say that thoughts about Brahman have also failed. Thoughts about Brahman as an object have also failed. And therefore, here Shruti is saying, very beautifully said, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. The words have come back without revealing Brahman along with the mind. Vritti jnanam has also been unsuccessful. Why? Because Brahman is you yourself. Brahman is not an object of thoughts, not an object of words. So, two Sanskrit words you should remember. Apratyaya Vishaya, not an object of thoughts. Pratyaya is a thought. Apratyaya Vishaya, not an object of thoughts. Anabhidheyaha, not an object of words. So, neither thoughts can reveal Brahman, nor words can reveal Brahman. So, both come back. The words come back. Simultaneously, the mind has also not grasped. Mind also comes back. So, yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Then anandam brahmano vidvan na bibheti kutaschana iti. With this iti, the rig mantra ends. What is he saying? Na bibheti vidvan na bibheti. Vidvan, the jnani, is not afraid. Why? Kutaschana, of anything in nature. Why? Anandam brahmano vidvan. He knows his real nature is Ananda. When my real nature, intrinsic nature is Ananda, I know that this Ananda, there is no agama apayanaha. There is no arrival and no departure. And real nature of mind can never be lost. And remember, everything that you really worry about is you worry about your happiness. You may say, I am worrying about my child or my brother or my sister. Ultimately, the whole thing translates, the worry translates to your worry about the state of your own mind. Is it I'm going to be happy or disturbed? But this jnani, he is not going to worry because he knows that whatever the state of his mind, his real nature is Ananda, cannot be shaken, cannot be disturbed. Note here that I said, whatever be the state of mind. So, jnani can be having a mind which is worrying for a particular event. But in the midst of the worrying mind, he doesn't lose sight of his real nature as Anandam Brahman. That's what is being said. The real nature of Ananda, I always remember. And therefore, na bhibeti, there is no fear in him. And again, when you talk about fear, you can divide this fear into two standpoints, Vyavaharika and Paramarthika. So from the point of Paramarthika, okay, before we come to that, fear is on account of what? Any fear that you have, the very basic necessity for having fear is what?
Insecurity.
Inadequacy or lacking.
Anybody else?
In acceptance of this impermanence.
of the
Apurva.
reality.
Identification as me, mine.
Failure.
Attachment.
Yes, Natraji, can you expand on that?
Attachment. Yes. So we say attachment comes out of punatvam, feeling of inadequacy. So we attach to something to give a sense of fulfillment, I suppose.
Okay. So you're attached to somebody or something or some, fame, money, whatever, right? Which means what? That there is something else required. When something else is not there, can there be fear? Fear always requires a second thing. So there is a Shruti statement actually. Dvitiyad bhayam bhavati. Whenever there is a second, there is fear. And so you must remember this always, that without a second thing, there can never be fear. So in the paramarthika situation, is there one thing or two things?
Only one.
One.
What is that one?
Only one.
Aham.
Brahman.
Atma.
What about Jagat?
Mithya.
Jagat Mithya, right? So on the
Yeah.
paramarthika level, there is only one Satyam. The other thing existing is Mithya, so it's not counted. And therefore, from the paramarthika standpoint, which is the standpoint of Atma, viewpoint of Atma, viewpoint of the Jnani, there is no one else but Atma. And therefore, since there is no Dvitiyam, since there is no second entity, there is no fear either. So that is the first way of looking. The Atma has no fear. As knowing that I am the Atma, knowing that there is nothing else from the Paramarthika angle, I will have no fear of anything because I am not afraid of anything. Remember, I here is the Paramarthika viewpoint. It is the consciousness principle itself. It doesn't include the body. So when the Jnani says, I am never fearful, he is talking as the consciousness principle. He may have fear about the destruction of the body by some accident or somebody trying to kill him. That fear may be there, but that is at the Vyavaharika level. We are talking about the Paramarthika level. And it is very, very important to understand that because the second definition of fear is from the standpoint of Vyavaharika, which is the standpoint of the mind of the Jnani. We are talking only about the Jnani right now, right? So there are two portions, the Atma and the Anatma. From the Atma portion, which is Paramarthika portion, there is no fear at all because there is no second thing. Nothing can destroy Brahman, nothing can destroy the Jnani. He knows. As Brahman, there is no destruction possible. You are eternal, you are always there. And so from that viewpoint, there is no fear. But from the viewpoint of the mind of the Jnani, the, what do you call, RM of the Jnani, can the Jnani say that I have no fear? Nobody can ever make this statement that any mind, even that of a Jnani, nobody can make a statement that the mind is free from fear. Even the Jnani's mind is not free from fear. So from the standpoint of the mind, freedom from fear is at a mental level. It's an event which can come when a threatening event comes, and that fear can go when the threatening event goes, right? Mental level freedom from fear cannot happen purely on account of jnanam. It needs a lot of sadhana, and therefore, in fact, there is a text called Jivan Mukti Viveka by a very famous acharya called Vidyaranya. He says that jnanam, it requires the support of sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, especially vairagyam and shama. Why does he say shama? Shama is the ability to focus the mind where you want it to focus. So if there is a fearful thought in the mind, if you have a good shama as your qualification, it is the ability to displace that unwelcome fear thought and replace it with welcome thought. And vairagyam, of course, is the dispassion which comes over time through abhyasa. So at the mental level, at the level of the mind, remember that jnanam will not displace fear. Your fear can come down at the mental level also. We are not saying that today, if your mind is very unstable and subject to problems all the time, it will continue to remain that way. No. What we are saying that pure jnanam alone, pure knowledge alone cannot help you there. That mind has to be strengthened with the support of sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, especially shama and vairagyam. And this comes only through abhyasa, never through jnanam. So that is why jnanam always needs to be supported at all times through abhyasa of sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. Sadhana chatushtaya sampatti belongs squarely in Veda, in Karma Kanda. And many of us, have this tendency to look down upon Karma Kanda and say, no, 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 who will do all that? Let us go straight to Jnana Kanda. But Karma Kanda is telling us that if you want mental fear in the mind to come down, you have to work on your mamakara and ahankara, which again requires a lot of sadhana. And therefore, Vidyaranya ends by saying that you should continuously work on your sadhana chatushta sampatti, even while you are undergoing jnana yoga, even when doing shravanam, when doing mananam, when doing nididhyasanam, you have to continuously work upon your sadhana chatushta sampatti, strengthening your mind. That is one thing. Secondly, another point you have to understand here is that there can be never 100% removal of fear in the mind. Mind is anatma. Anatma is subject to changes. And therefore, you can never say that there is zero fear in my mind. You, at the Vyavaharika level, there can never be complete removal of fear. At the Paramarthika level, there is no need for removal at all, because fear doesn't exist over there, since the second entity does not exist. But at the Vyavaharika level, at the level of your mind, this removal of fear is always relative. And it is in the form of what we call FIR. You continuously work on your FIR. Reducing the FIR is the only way to minimize the fear in the mind. But remember, that fear can never go away completely. And if you remember chapter 2, when Krishna says sthira prajna, he is dealing with this relative removal of fear through sadhana chatushtaya. He is not dealing with the absolute removal of fear, which is at the level of the Atma only. And this mantra talks about what? This mantra talks about removal of fear at the Atma level. And here there is no fear at all. Since the mind itself is not there at the Atma level, the fear from the mind is not there at all. And there is no second thing at all. So at the Paramatma level, at the Atma level, there is no fear. And iti, of course, indicates the end of the quotation. Right? So we should note a few points over here. Atmananda can be acquired through jnanam. And we said before, Koshananda can be acquired through two different methods. One is by indulging in sense objects, and one is through vairagyam. So these two things were the main ideas being conveyed in Ananda Mimamsa. That the amount of joy which you get out of sense objects in Hiranyagarbha Loka, that same joy can be got through sufficient vairagyam in Manusya Loka. A jnani has got jnanam, and therefore vairagyam, and therefore atmananda. Right? Now, if a person has got jnanam, he automatically has the sadhana chatushtaya, because that is the very purpose. unless, we said earlier, unless sadhana chatushtayam is there, the jnanam will not work on you. Therefore, if a person has got jnanam, he is also sadhana chatushtaya sampanna adhikari. Because without that, jnanam is not possible. And therefore, the jnani has also got vairagyam. So, vairagyam is a means of attaining koshananda, we said. And therefore, even if sense objects are not available to the jnani, the koshananda is available to the jnani because he has vairagyam. And therefore, jnani has twofold ananda, atmananda as well as koshananda. Therefore, every jnani has got the original ananda, bimbananda, as also the reflected ananda, pratibimbananda, which we call koshananda. Right? And all the anandas, starting from that Manushya Ananda up to that Hiranyagarbha Ananda, which we saw in the Ananda Mimamsa, all this Jnani has got. Okay. So with this, we'll stop the subject of the Ananda and the Jnani. And now we come back to the three questions. Brahman exists or not? Whether Jnani attains Brahman or not? Whether Ajnani attains Brahman or not? The first question, Brahman exists or not, we saw in very great detail. Now, what about the other two questions? The teacher does not answer at all. So, Shankaracharya in his commentary says that these two are indicated in this Phalashruti. Remember that both the questions are actually wrong. Saying Jnani attains Brahman or not is wrong. Saying Ajnani attains Brahman or not, both questions are wrong. Why?
Because they are Brahman.
Because they are Brahman. The question of reaching or not reaching Brahman, attaining or not attaining Brahman arises if Brahman is separate from you. But whether you are Ajnani or Jnani, Brahman is your very Swarupam. And therefore, if you have to answer that question, you have to take it as whether you know that you are Brahman or whether you do not know that you are Brahman. This Ajnanam, this ignorance causes a notional distance, and that distance cannot be traveled over as long as the ignorance continues. When I get Jnanam, the distance vanishes, the notional distance vanishes. And therefore, the person who has got Jnanam, he has as though reached Brahman. So you can say, yes, the Jnani attained Brahman. And similarly, the Ajnani does not as though attain Brahman because he has not understood that he is Brahman. So all the three questions we have answered. The rest of it, of this mantra, of the last part of this chapter itself is a glorification of the Jnani. Right? So look at the words. So this is etam havavana tapati. So he says that this person does not torment himself. So this Jnani, as a result of this Jnanam, has become free from samsara. He has become a Jivan Mukta, right? And when you say samsara, what is the physical expression? Samsara is the state of not knowing that you are Brahman and therefore being subject to a lot of problems. The cause of that samsara is therefore always ajnanam, which is intellectual in nature, right? Ajnanam exists in the buddhi, in the intellect. The cause exists in the intellect. It is mental in nature, but its manifestation is always in the form of psychological or emotional problems. And one of the expressions of samsara is always regret over the past. And that is what he says here. Kim aham sadhu na karavam. Sadhu na karavam. Why did I not do good things? Sadhu is good actions. Kim aham sadhu na karavam. Why did I not do good actions? And therefore, this is the regret over some omission of the past. And kim aham papam akaravam iti. Why did I commit this so and so bad action, so and so papa? So worry over omissions and regret over commissions. Sadhuna karavam, papam akaravam iti. Why did I not do good deeds? Why did I do bad deeds? Worry over omissions, regret over commissions. These are the strongest expressions of samsara. And therefore, if you have been assimilating this knowledge over the last so many years that we have been studying, you should have noticed that etam ha vavana tapati. Tapati. These indeed, these meaning what? Etam here refers to these. These is what? Worries and regrets. Na tapati. It does not torment you anymore. For the jnani, worries and regrets do not torment him anymore. Why? Saye evam vidvan atmanam sprunote. The jnani sees all the omissions and commissions as part of a mithya samsara. As part of a mithya samsara. Mithya samsara means what? They don't exist apart from Atma. So he sees, prunute here literally means sees, perceives. Therefore, he sees all these omissions, commissions as part of a mithya universe, which have no existence apart from Atma. And therefore, this existence itself is mithya, which means it exists only because Atma exists. It has no separate existence from Atma. And therefore, for him, Papam and Punyam are also not separate from Atma. And just as when in a dream, when you have killed somebody or when you have told a lot of lies and you wake up, for the waker, those problems don't exist. Similarly, when you wake up to your higher nature as Atma, all these problems which belong to the Anatma, to the Vyavaharika, plane, these problems become insignificant, right? So a good example is, if in a society, for example, let us say there is a bulb, which is the light, a strong light, which is lit after dark, so that the road and all in the garden and all is visible, right? Children play in the garden, so then you need light over there, right? So in the night, they put on the light. It's a strong light, it's there. And one day, if the watchman forgets to switch off the light, when the sun rises, even if the light is strongly burning, you don't notice. Why? Because the sun's stronger light has overshadowed that light. It's the same example. They may be there, but for you, they are as good as non-existent. So he says, obey he, esha ete atmanam srunate. These two, punyam and papam, eshaha, for this wise person, atmanam srunate, he looks upon both of punyam and papam as atma. So it's a very interesting, idea being conveyed that regrets and guilt are a very powerful expression of samsara, and the jnani is free from both of those. Remember, it is not that the jnani will never hurt anybody, not deliberately, but he has a limited mind. He is sarvavit, not sarvagnya. Remember Mundaka Upanishad. And therefore, in spite of his best intentions, he may do something, he may say something which can harm or hurt somebody else. And that is the standpoint of karta. And from the standpoint of bhokta, somebody may say something to him. Those feelings of hurt may remain in his mind. And therefore, if you have learned to handle guilt and hurt successfully, which means what? It doesn't mean that your mind doesn't react. Somebody says something, your mind pricks for some time. You might even retaliate. Hopefully you won't, but you might retaliate. Now that retaliation can be handled not by jnanam, but by sadhana chatushtaya. So even if you have retaliated, but next morning you have forgotten. You no longer have, more important than others. Those feelings no longer prick in your mind, no longer rotate in your mind. So you have learned to handle guilt and hurt. Then you are Jivan Mukta. Right? How did you learn to handle them? By falsifying, by negating the karta and the bhokta as mithya. By understanding that karta and bhokta belong to ahankara only. And ahankara is RC. RC is actually only OC. There is no RC without the OC. Ahankara is nothing but Atma. And in Atma, there is no karta, there is no bhokta. So you have to convert the ahankara into mithya for yourself. Then only you can handle guilt and regrets. The more real the ahankara is for us, the more intense is my guilt and hurt, the more intense are my reactions, and therefore I make other people suffer more. And therefore, even more than Brahma Satyam, you have to first work on Jagan Mithya. Once you have worked on Jagan Mithya, which includes the ahankara, then only Brahma Satyam can happen. So he ends up by saying, Ye evam vedaha. One who understands in this manner, he is a jnani. He is free from both regrets and guilt. Iti Upanishataha. Thus ends the Brahma Valli. So with this, we'll stop. Any questions?
Acharya?
Yeah.
So I keep coming back to this sort of amusing mananam sometimes, that just as we're starting to realize now that the Jnani as though attains Brahman,
Yeah.
will we understand at some point that when Shastra tells us Sanchita is destroyed and there is no further rebirth, will we understand it as Sanchita is as though destroyed and as though there is no further rebirth? Because in the sense that all these Devata births and all that, with all that punyam.
Very interesting question, right?
Yeah.
So from the Paramarthika level, there is nothing. And that we'll see in the next Upanishad, Mandukya. That it's called actually Ajativada, the discussion about no creation at all. So Gaudapada simply says, what creation? Now, what are we talking about? But that is Paramarthika level always. You need your body and your mind to understand. So this is the portion, the critical part where you do a balancing stunt. One leg in Vyavaharika and one leg in Paramarthika. If you simply go around saying nothing exists, they lock you up. So you need one leg very firmly in Vyavaharika, in behavior with others, in looking after people, in taking care of people, in teaching, all these things. You have to give your best to Vyavaharika, as if Vyavaharika is very real. At the same time, you have this thing that no, all this is being done by my body, mind, sense complex. But I am Brahman. Nothing exists for me. And from that point of view, okay, this is my personal view. From that point of view, even if your body is born again and again, what is your problem? You are not the body in any case.
I feel like this is a trick. Maybe it's the trick of Shastra. We won't care when we become jnanis, just like I realize I always was Brahman.
Yes.
What do I care if this body is born
What do you
again?
care if the body comes and goes? It's not just one body. The thing is, as Brahman, you cannot say it is my body. It is a body for you.
Right.
So when you say my body and my rebirth, it is a big fraud because you are saying you are not Brahman.
Mm-hmm. So now you can tell us, we won't be upset if that is actually.
Your body, this body of yours may be born again and again. Who knows?
Thank you.
Om sir, does this make everything irrelevant or everything relevant? I sometimes
As
in
Brahman,
Mananam
everything is relevant.
relevant. Yes.
As Jiva, nothing is relevant.
Yes.
Acharya,
Yes.
I just wanted clarification on that fear about Atma, which you said. I think I'm a bit lost it about why are we fearful. I understand, I think, till the kosha level, but fearful about Atma.
At the Atma level, there is no other kosha, no? There is nobody else but Atma. At Atma level, everything is Brahman only. There is a saying, yatra yatra manoyati, tatra tatra, what? Samadhiya. Drik drishya viveka. Wherever your mind goes, you should see only Brahman. And wherever you see Brahman, you see only yourself. So who are you afraid of? There is no fear possible at the Brahman level because there is nothing to be afraid of. Brahman is all-pervading, eternal, no birth, no change, no nothing. What is Brahman got to be afraid of? At that level, there is no fear possible. There is no question of removal of fear at that level. Fear is not there to remove. There is nobody having fear and there is nobody removing fear. But at the Vyavarika level, you need, which is why so much of work goes into sadhana chatushtayam, mananam, meditation. Why? Because that is the level at which fear exists. And you can reduce that fear to a certain level. You can destroy it only at the paramarthika, not at the Vyavarika level. The most dispassionate person will have some problem at the end. Some fear will be there. That can be reduced. That is why we first talked about FIR 5 years ago, 6 years ago when we started this class. And we are still talking about FIR, which shows the importance of that. FIR is something which you need to work on throughout your life, even if you are a jnani. Because jnani's mind is also subject to disturbance. Right? And the problem with that is what? That supposing I am Brahman, and then you are crying all the time about something or the other. Right? What is the problem? That sorrow of yours, it can disturb your faith in the Shastra. And that Aham Brahmasmi, which your Guru said, if you are crying all the time, you will be asking yourself, how can I Aham Brahmasmi be bawling all the time? And therefore, that faith is shaken. Therefore, you need to work on your sadhana chatushtaya.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tattva-bodha is always relevant and very important at every stage.
Always relevant. That's the most brilliant book. In fact, if you had 100% sadhana chatushtayam, Tattva-bodha itself would have made you into a full-fledged jnani.
Yes.
But none of us have that, so we need to work on all the others.
Yes.
Okay, so next class onwards, we'll start the third chapter. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.